So we're going to start in sitting. What we're going to do here is I'm just going to open up the little box here just to make sure it's not blocking us. Okay. So we're going to start in sitting. And what we're going to do is when we're sitting, we're just going to shuffle a little bit more forward to the front of our seats, just so we're not leaning back into anything or not slouching. We're going to have our feet about hip width apart, planted firmly onto the floor. From here, you're going to think about your spine growing up towards the ceiling. Almost like you got the crown of your head reaching up towards the ceiling as if your head is a helium balloon and it's floating upwards. Great. From here, we're going to place our hands onto the bottom of our rib cage, and we're just going to start by grounding ourselves and just centering ourselves with some breaths. So we're going to think of breathing into our hands and out. And again, breathing into the hands. Great. Notice when you're breathing, we're going to stay nice and tall through our spine. So we're not slouching as we breathe out. We're thinking about that helium balloon as our head reaching up to the ceiling. Good. Nice heavy shoulders, long neck. Good. A couple more here. Really feeling your feet, the soles of your feet, all 10 toes firmly planted into the ground, almost like you're going to grow some roots out of the bottom of your feet. Nice heavy pelvis on the surface you're sitting on. One more breath here. And out. Good. And from here, we're going to gently place our arms down beside us, making sure we're nice and tall. Our spine is growing the entire time. We're going to inhale and bring our arms up overhead. And on the exhale, we're going to bend our hands to behind our head. We're going to shrug our shoulders up to our ears as high as they would go. And then exhale to let it go. And then inhale to bring your hands over your head again. Exhale to lower the arms down. So this is our corkscrew warm up. And again, inhale. And exhale. Inhale, shoulders up. Exhale, drop the shoulders. Inhale, arms reaching overhead. Exhale, arms coming down. Good. And again, reaching overhead. Make sure your shoulders are down here. Exhale, hands behind the head. Shoulders shrugging up to the ears as far as you can go. Shoulders lowering down. Good. Making sure your spine is nice and long, nice and lengthened, crown of the head towards the ceiling as we're doing this. And again, reaching overhead. Good. Folding the hands behind the head. Shoulders up to the ears. Good. Shoulders dropping down. Reaching the arms overhead. And lowering the arms back down. We're going to do one more here. Reaching the arms up. Behind the head. Shrugging the shoulders up to the ears as far as they would go. And dropping them down heavy. Good. Reaching the arms overhead. And bringing the arms back down. Good. This time, we're going to have our arms dangling by our side. We're going to think about our spine. We're going to lengthen our spine even further. And then we're just going to curve our upper body to one side. Notice I'm going up and over. So I'm not just crunching over, but you're thinking up with the head and then over with the upper body. Good. So the lower part of your spine should be relatively straight. It should just be the top part of your spine arching over. From here, we're gonna curve forward in our upper back, and then we're gonna roll back up, one vertebrae stacking on top of the other. Good, and again, we're gonna think up and curving over to the other side. Notice that gap I have underneath my armpit. And we're gonna curve forward with the upper back. And then we're gonna roll up, stacking one vertebrae on top of the other. Good. And again, think lengthening through the spine. We're gonna arch over, keeping the neck nice and long. We're not crunching, keeping the neck nice. A little bit further forward. And then we're gonna roll up, stacking one vertebrae on top of the other. Good, and again, up and over. Good, air under the armpits. We're gonna roll forward with the upper back. And then we're gonna stack each vertebrae on top of the other. Make sure your feet are still firmly planted into the ground. A couple more. Lengthen the spine, arching over, air under the armpits. And we're gonna take that further and roll forward, almost like you're doing a little bit of a semicircle. And then you're gonna stack one vertebrae on top of the other and roll back up. Good, last time. Reach, lengthen through the spine, curve over, armpit, nice and loose, thinking about the air underneath it. And then you're gonna curl forward. Good. And then you're gonna think about stacking one vertebrae on top of the other until you're stacking up and sitting nice and tall again, thinking about lengthening through the vertebrae. This time, we're gonna float both of our arms forward in front of us, keeping your arms nice and steady, keeping your chest nice and wide so we're not crunching forward. We're opening that chest, shoulder blades drawing down. From here, we're gonna lift our heels and press the balls of our feet into the floor and lower down. Notice how my hands here, my fingers are nice and wide. Think about pressing down, almost like you've got something resistance, pressing your arms down, and you're holding your arms there while we're doing our foot series. That's it, sitting up nice and tall. Make sure our spine is nice and lengthened. Good, keep going. Lift the heel, press the balls of your feet into the floor as hard as you can, and coming back down. Make sure you've got equal weight on all 10 toes. Good. Keep going. That's it. Keep your spine nice and tall. Think about lengthening through the crown of the head the entire time. Good. That's it. Keep breathing. Good. And we're gonna open our arms out to the side, keep our foot series going. So you're thinking about opening through the collarbone, opening through the chest. Keep those fingers nice and wide. Keep lifting up the heels. We're gonna keep going with our foot series. Good. And then we're gonna slide our arms across again, forward. So it's almost like your arms are dusting a glass tabletop. So we don't want them to drop. We want to keep them at this nice 90-degree angle. Fingers spread, open the chest. Keep going with your foot. That's it. Really think about lifting up the heel. You're almost thinking about, as you're doing this, your toes are reaching far down into the earth and your heels are reaching up towards the ceiling. So you want to really find that opposition there. Good, that's it. And forward. Keep going. Think about dusting that glass table with the arms. Good, and open. That's it. Good, and again. That's it. And open. We're gonna do a couple more here. And in. Nice and tall through the spine. Keep breathing. Good, and open the arms. Nice wide chest. Good. Okay, now we're gonna bring our hands onto our hips. From here, we're gonna do our foot articulation. So we're gonna do one foot at a time. We're gonna think lifting the heel on one, I'm just gonna sit back a little bit so you can see me. Lifting the heel on one side, and then you're lifting the toes. And then placing the balls of the feet back down, and placing the heel back down. Same thing on the other side, thinking heel up, toes down, heels down. And again, heel up, toes down, heel down. And as we're doing this, we want to make sure we're not starting to sink as we're doing the foot articulation. You want to think nice and lengthened. So think about a string coming out of the top of your head and someone's pulling it towards the ceiling. That's it. Nice and tall. Think nice and strong, nice and stable in the upper body. Good. Keep going. Make sure you're breathing through this. Good. That's it. You got it. I'm going to do a couple more here. Good. Last one. Good. And we're just going to exaggerate that movement a little bit more now. So it's almost like you're pressing so hard into the floor that your foot flicks off. So you're lifting the heel, flicking the toes. So still thinking about nice stability in the upper body as you're doing this. Thinking about your spine lengthening towards the ceiling. Good. And then keep going with the legs. We're just going to drop our arms to the side now. If you feel like you need to hold on to something, please feel free. If you get legs off, your balance is getting a little bit unstable, you can definitely hold on. But for those of you who would like to try it without holding on, you're just going to dangle your arms. And with every repetition, you're going to see if you can make the movements in the legs a little bit bigger, a little bit more exaggerated with that kind of foot rolling movement. A little bit exaggerated, that's it. And then perhaps you start to move the arm, the opposite arm to the leg a little bit as well. Thinking about that flicking movement, that rolling movement in the arms as well. But making sure as we're doing this, we're keeping our spine nice and lengthened, nice and long. And you can do this at your own speed. It doesn't have to be quick. It can be whatever speed you feel comfortable doing, as long as you can control the movement. That's it. It's almost like thinking about your limbs are like leaves floating in the wind. They've got that nice, airy, floating feeling. Good. That's it. Good. Well done, everybody. Keep going. I'm going to do a couple more here. Good. Two more. One more. Good. And find some rest. Hands on your legs or on the bed, whichever you prefer. And we're just going to think lengthen through the spine again. And we're going to gently place our fingertips on the bed. Now, this is going to be our transition to lying down. You can do this in whichever way you like, as in whichever side you like, depending on where the head of your bed is or how much room you've got. So I'm going to go this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide my hand out. And I'm just going to think I'm placing some weight on that hand. And then I'm going to gently bring one leg up at a time so that I'm lying on my side, and then I'm going to roll onto my back. Now, for those of you who cannot lie flat, please feel free to use pillows however high you like it to be. So even if you are almost in a bit of a semi-sitting position like this, that's absolutely fine. Whatever you feel comfortable doing, okay? So feel free to use pillows as you like. And what we're gonna do is, lying down on our back, we're gonna just draw each leg up gently so that our feet are flat on the bed, like so, okay? And what you're gonna do here is your arms are gonna be nice and relaxed by your side, and we're gonna bring our legs in together. So you want your legs and your feet to be in together, touching. From here, keeping our heels together, we're gonna open up our toes out to the side, and then we're gonna open our heels to join. So that way our legs are hip width apart. So we're gonna go over something called the Pilates rest position now. Now, the name, I know, sounds a little bit funny because it says rest position, but actually the position is not very restful at all, as you'll see in a moment. But it's important to talk about the Pilates rest position because this is the position we're gonna base all of our movements on. So you're gonna make a little diamond shape with your hand. I'm just gonna show you. So you have your thumbs touching together and then your fingers touching together. So you have a little bit of like a diamond triangle shape, right? From here, where your thumbs are, you're gonna place the thumbs in your belly button and then let the hand fall. So you've got a little bit of a diamond shape like this. So thumbs in the belly button like that. So you got a little bit of a diamond shape here on your pelvis. And you're just gonna imagine you've got a little steel ball inside of that triangle you've created, and you're gonna use the movement of your pelvis to roll that steel ball to the top of the triangle or diamond, and then to the bottom of the triangle or diamond. So if I just move this hand for a second, so you can you see my pelvis? I'm not lifting anything off the bed, but I'm using the movement of my pelvis. Let me just move this, sorry. Okay, I'm using the movement of my pelvis to rock. So I'm using the movement of the pelvis to move that steel ball in the middle of the diamond to the top of the diamond, the very top of the diamond, and then to the very bottom of the diamond. Okay, very top of the diamond, the very bottom of the diamond. So we're gonna keep doing that a couple times, our pelvic tilting. And with each repetition, you're just gonna make the rock of the pelvis a little bit smaller so that you're eventually stopping in a neutral zone where you're halfway between tipping as far as you can with the ball going up and going as far as you can the other way. So you want that halfway point between each of those extreme movements, and that is called your neutral pelvis. So that's number one part of our Pilates rest position. So you want to maintain your neutral pelvis the entire time. Okay, you can keep your hands on your belly, or you can now place them by your side now that you've got that neutral pelvis. From here, you're going to gently draw up through your pelvic floor, almost as if you were sitting on a block of ice and it's very cold and you went, oh, all of a sudden you held in your pelvic floor a little bit. So we're not clenching, but we're drawing up the pelvic floor maybe by about 20% of your effort. So that's number two of your Pilates rest position. So making sure as you're drawing up through the pelvic floor, you're still keeping that neutral pelvis we talked about. Good. Now keeping both of those two things, we're going to think on melting the ribs into the bed. Good. That's number three of your Pilates rest position. Now we're going to think about our shoulder blades. You're going to think about your shoulder blades pressing down into the bed, nice and heavy. And then you're going to think about tucking your shoulder blades into the opposite back pocket of your pants. So it's that down and cross motion of your shoulder blades. And make sure as you're doing that, you're still keeping your ribs melted down into the bed, your neutral pelvis, and drawing up of the pelvic floor. The last checklist on our Pilates rest position is our neck. You're going to think about lengthening the back of the neck, almost like you're holding a little peach underneath your chin. You're holding a little peach underneath your chin. So we're not clenching like this, but we're not like this either, right? You're keeping the neck nice and long, holding a peach. So that is our Pilates rest position. Thinking about that peach underneath the chin, shoulder blades down into the bed, thinking about the shoulder blades tucking into the opposite back pocket of our pants, our ribs melting down into the bed, keeping that neutral pelvis and sucking up through that pelvic floor. Okay, we're going to keep hold of this position the entire time we're doing our Pilates exercise. So we're going to float both arms up towards the ceiling, palms facing in. From here, we're going to reach our arms back slightly and draw a big outer circle and come back into the middle. So it's almost like with your right arm, you're drawing the letter D, and then your left arm is mirroring that letter D. Good. And as you're doing this, really make sure we're keeping the 5 elements of our Pilates rest position the whole time. So thinking about lengthening the back of the neck by holding a peach under our chin. Think about tucking the shoulder blades into the opposite back pocket of our pants. Thinking about the rib cage melting down into the bed. Thinking about our neutral pelvis. So that point where we're halfway between tipping as far as we can one way and tipping as far as we can the other way. And then the last thing is thinking about the pelvic floor drawing up, almost like you're sitting on a block of ice. Good. Keep going. Keep breathing. And go. And out. And in. And out. Keeping sure that you're making your 5 elements of your Pilates rest position nice and strong. Good, that's it. Keep it going. Making sure your ribs are not flaring as you're reaching your arms overhead. Keep the ribs melting down into the bed or into the pillow if you're in a semi-seated position. Good. Keep going. That's it. Well done. Nice and gentle movement, but also very strong through the trunk muscles. And then if you would like a little bit more of a challenge, maybe see if you can bring your arms a little bit further. So still maintaining that peach under the chin, the shoulder blades tucking into the opposite back pocket, the ribs melting down into the bed, the pelvis in a neutral position, and the pelvic floor pulling up gently. So see if you can keep those elements while making the arm movements a little bit bigger. Good. We're going to do a couple more here. One more. Good. And then we're going to float our arms back down. This time we're going to do an exercise called our one leg stretch level 1. Holding all of the 5 resting positions, you're going to slide one of your heels down away from you, and then you're going to slide it back up. So as you're doing this, I know if your bed is soft, you feel like you're moving a little bit, but you're trying to hold your 5 Pilates resting position steady as much as you can. So it's almost like if I were to cover your legs with a blanket, I shouldn't be able to tell you're moving at all if I wasn't looking at your legs. So you're thinking about as you're moving the legs, you're not losing that neutral pelvis. You're not losing the contraction in that pelvic floor. You're not flaring your ribs. You're keeping your ribs melted down. You're thinking about the shoulder blade drawing down and crossing over into the opposite back pocket. And you're thinking about the back of the neck nice and long. Think about that peach underneath your chin. And as you're moving the legs, make sure the opposite leg is nice and steady. So the opposite leg, imagine you're balancing a glass of wine on the kneecap. You want to make sure we're not starting to do this kind of movement. You want to keep that nice and steady. Good, that's it. Keep breathing. Make sure we're not holding our breath. Keeping our 5 Pilates rest position nice and strong as we're doing this. So the purpose of doing all of this kind of exercise where you're trying to hold your trunk nice and steady is for our limb dissociation ability. So the ability to move our arms and legs and head in any direction we'd like without losing our balance, without losing our stability in our trunk. Keep it going, sliding the foot away and bring it back in, making sure you're not losing. So making sure as you're sliding the leg, we're not then losing our pelvis, right? You want to keep that pelvis nice and strong. Don't let it arch. Keep that pelvis nice and strong. Keep the ribs melting down into the bed as you're doing this. That's it. Keep going. We're going to do a couple of more here. That's it. Very good. Good. You've got it. See if you can do 2 more in your own time. Keep breathing. Think about that glass of wine on the opposite knee. Good. And we'll come to a rest position here. Still maintaining your Pilates rest position. If you feel you've lost it a little bit, go back to your diamond shape and try to do a couple more of the pelvic tilting to find your neutral. We're now going to do something called scissors level 1. You're thinking about your Pilates rest position, pulling up through the pelvic floor, neutral pelvis, ribs melting down into the bed, shoulder blades sliding away from the ears and down into the opposite back pocket, long back of the neck, holding a peach under your chin. From here, you're going to float one leg up to tabletop like this, like a 90-degree angle, and then you're going to float it back down. You're going to float one leg up to tabletop, floating it back down. Notice as I'm doing this, I know I'm turning my head to look at you, but you want to keep that long back of the neck. But as you're doing this, you want to think about keeping all of the 5 elements we talked about in our Pilates rest position nice and strong, nice and steady. So you don't want to be lifting the leg and then losing that pelvis position or that rib position. So really think about maintaining that neutral pelvis, holding in our pelvic floor, melting the ribs down into the bed, shoulder blades down away from the ears and tucking into the opposite back pocket, lengthening the back of the neck such that you're holding a peach under your chin. And then we're going to keep it going. That's it. Make sure you're not holding your breath. You're breathing as we're doing our scissors level 1. Good. Keep going. Breathing. Thinking about holding that glass of wine on the opposite knee so that we're not shaking our knees. And you can even think about having a spirit level sit across the front of your pelvis, and you're trying to keep that little bubble in the middle the whole time. So you don't want to be tipping the pelvis from side to side. You want to make sure the spirit level, the bubble in the middle, stays right in the midline. So it should be nice and steady across your pelvis as well. Good. I know that's a lot to think about, but as you can probably feel in your body, even though the movement looks like not a lot, it doesn't look like a very hard or big movement, but keeping all these Pilates rest elements in place and trying to keep that opposite knee steady, keep that spirit level in the middle, it's actually pretty tough to do this for a long time. We're going to do a couple more here. Breathing. That's it. Well done. Keep it going. That's it. Good. See if you can do 2 more in your own time. Holding your 5 elements of the Pilates rest position. Ribs melting down. Pelvis nice and steady. Good. You're going to plant your feet firmly on the bed. And if you need to relax, feel free to relax a little bit. And then we're going to get right back into that 5 Pilates rest position. So drawing up through the pelvic floor, neutral pelvis. Think about that diamond with the steel ball. You're making that ball rest in the middle. You're melting the ribs down into the bed, shoulder blades away from the ears, tucking into the opposite back pocket. Back of the neck nice and long, tucking a peach, holding a peach underneath the chin. From here, we're going to do our shoulder bridge level 1. You're going to imagine your spine is like a string of pearls in sand. And you're going to lift the string of pearls one at a time so that it kind of curves up like that, 1 pearl at a time, and then it lowers back down 1 pearl at a time. So you're going to start at the bottom of your pelvis. So I'm going to actually move my hand so you can see. So for you, you're going to place your hands down by your side, but I'm just going to move my arms so you can see. So you're going to start at the very bottom of your tailbone. You're going to peel each vertebrae off the bed one at a time until the weight of your trunk is resting in between your shoulder blades. And then from here, you're pressing down 1 vertebrae at a time. So your bottom should be the last thing to come down. So hopefully you can see that. I'll move my arm again. So you're starting with the bottom of your tailbone and you're lifting up 1 vertebrae at a time. So this is now empty. So there's nothing underneath here, right? So up until your shoulder blade. And then you're going to lower down 1 vertebrae at a time until your bottom comes back down. And again, you're really trying to isolate each of your spinal bones. So you should be able to see where my hand is underneath my back, right? So we're lifting up and down 1 vertebrae at a time. So you can almost even think about your spine like a snake. The way the snake moves, it's very articulating. So it's kind of like that movement. Now, if you were someone who found this quite aggravating for your back, if you were someone with spine issues, like if you've had a fusion surgery in your spine, for example, this is something that you wouldn't be able to do with articulation. And in that case, you can just lift up all together as long as we're not lifting like this, where we're using our neck and our shoulders. You want to make sure you stop when you get to your shoulder blades and you come back down, right? So there's a difference between this at the top versus that. So we're not using our back muscles, right? We're using the back of our legs and our trunk muscles to really articulate through that spine. Good. Make sure you're breathing. And as we're doing this, we want to make sure our legs are not losing the position. So they're not coming out and they're not coming back in. You want to keep them nice and neutral, almost like you've got flashlights coming out of the tops of your kneecaps and you're pointing them at the ceiling or in that opposite direction and in that corner at the wall. Good. Keep going. Keep breathing. And again. Good. And it doesn't really matter whether you're breathing in or out during any of these movements. You can breathe in whatever pattern you like. There's no specific way you should really be doing the breathing. But the reason we often say inhale to prepare and exhale to execute the movement is more just to make sure the speed of your breath is relatively slow and long. But as long as you're breathing, it doesn't really matter which way you would like to breathe, as long as you keep the breath nice and deep and nice and long. Good. You can probably see here that doing this method of bridge, of articulating, you actually don't end up lifting as high as you think which is absolutely fine. You should feel the back of your bottom muscles and the back of your legs start to burn a little bit, and maybe a little bit in your tummy muscles as well. Good, keep it going. Think about peeling each of your vertebrae off the bed one at a time, and then pressing each vertebrae down into the bed one at a time. Good, really articulating through that spine. Good, we're gonna do one more in your own time, going up and articulating down. Good. Good. And from here, we're going to find our 5 resting elements again of our Pilates rest position. Think about pulling up through the pelvic floor, keeping that pelvis neutral, ribs melting down into the bed, shoulder blades sliding down into the opposite back pocket, peach under your chin. From here, we're going to do an exercise called hip twist level 1 or single leg fallout. So what you're going to do is keep everything nice and strong. You're just going to gently bring one of your knees out to the side like this and bring it back up. So really important thing that you want to try to do when you're doing the hip twist level 1 is you're trying not to then tip with the leg opening, right? So you're not tipping with that leg opening. You're trying to keep the hip nice and steady. You're keeping everything nice and level, and the only thing that should be moving is that leg, including your pelvis. So you want to make sure you have that spirit level sitting on top of your pelvis. Not actually a spirit level, but imagine you have a spirit level there, or maybe a tray of drinks, and you want to make sure you're not tipping the drinks, you're not spilling it. And make sure the opposite knee is nice and steady. So imagine that glass of wine on that non-moving knee. Good. And you'll probably find that you can't actually go very far before you want to tip, and that's absolutely fine. Only go in a controlled range of movement. So it's not about how far you can bring your leg down, it's more about how much you can control. So you want to make sure you stop your leg from moving right before you feel that tip happening. Good. Keep drawing up through the pelvic floor, thinking about that neutral pelvis, ribs melting down into the floor or the bed, and the shoulder blades away from the ears, tucking into the opposite back pocket, peach underneath the chin. Good. Thinking about keeping that pelvis nice and steady, nice and level, a drink balancing on the non-moving knee. Good. Keep going. Breathing. Good. That's it. Well done. Keep breathing. You can probably feel that one side, you can move a little bit further than the other, and that's absolutely fine. It's very normal for us to find that we have one side stronger than the other, and it's not something that we're going to necessarily worry about. We're just going to acknowledge it. We're just going to notice the differences on either side of our body, and that's it. And we're just going to keep working on this movement of keeping the pelvis and the trunk and the knee nice and level. Good. Well done, everyone. Keep going. I'm going to do a couple of more here. Well done. Good. Okay. Now we're going to bring our legs in together, arms open to the side. We're going to do our hip twist level 2, which is just the spinal rotation movement. So from here, you're going to drop your knees gently to one side, letting the hip and lower back come off, but you're trying to keep the opposite shoulder down if you can. Notice how my feet are stacked on top of each other and they're not being left behind like this. The feet are stacked. And then from here, imagine you got magnets underneath the soles of your feet and the back that's lifting off, and it's just going to get sucked right back in to the bed. So it's moving as a unit. Good. And then you're going to gently bring the knees to the other side. So keeping your feet stacked on top of each other. We're not leaving one behind. Your back and hip will come off, but your opposite shoulder stays down. And then think about the magnet underneath the sole of the feet and the back that pulls you back to the middle. Good. And again. Dropping the knees to one side, letting the back come off, but trying to keep the opposite arm down if you can. Think about the magnet underneath the soles of the feet and the hips to bring you back to neutral. One more. Good. Think about the magnet bringing you back to the middle. Good. From here, we're going to drop your knees to one side. It doesn't matter what side you can choose. And we're going to let our arms follow such that we're lying on our side. Good. Your arm can be overhead like this. You can have a pillow underneath. You can bring your arm forward, whichever is more comfortable for you. From here, whoops, my mat's a little bit tangled. I'm just going to move it forward so you can see. Okay, from here, we're going to keep our legs bent. You're going to make sure your feet are in line with your bottom, which is in line with your back and your shoulders. So we don't want the feet like this, and we don't want them too far behind. You want the feet to be in line with the bottom, in line with the shoulders. We're going to think about our 5 Pilates resting position again. You're going to try to find that neutral pelvis. Good, pulling up through the pelvic floor. Now, you can feel that your upper hip is actually a little bit higher up than my lower hip right now. So you want to pull that up. You want to pull this upper hip towards your feet. So imagine someone's grab hold of your shirt and they're pulling that hip down towards the feet such that you get a little bit of a gap underneath this side of your body. So your hips are level. So if I were to put my hands across the front of my hips, they're level versus before they were like this, where my hip is here and the bottom hip is here where my fingers are. You can see it's on a diagonal, but I'm going to pull that top hip down so the front of my hips are now level. Okay, you can either put your hand here on your hip or down. We're going to do our clams level 1 exercise. I'm going to put my hand here just so you can see. From here, making sure your hips are level, right? You're pulling the top hip down towards the floor to create a gap underneath your side. You're going to imagine headlights at the front of the hips, which are now pointing directly forward in front of you at the wall, but you're just going to turn the headlights down a little bit so they're almost at the floor. Good. Making sure you're keeping that gap underneath your side. Keep that top hip pulled down, shoulders away from the ears, headlights at the front of the hips, pointing down towards the floor. From here, keeping that position, ribs melting into the spine, not flaring out, melting into the spine. You're going to lift the top knee, keeping the feet together, and then you're going to bring it down. Good. So you'll probably find with this position of thinking about the headlights pointing almost towards the floor and keeping that gap underneath your spine, it's actually pretty difficult to lift that top knee very high, and that's absolutely fine. You're just bringing that knee up as far as you can without tipping back, right? So you're thinking about the headlights at the front of the hips, down towards the floor, thinking about the top hip pulling down towards the bed or towards the feet such that the front of your hip is completely level, right? The front of your hip bones should be parallel to each other. It should be perpendicular to the floor. That's it, good. Keep going. Breathing. That's it, keep going, breathing. Good. You're gonna do 4 more. Keep the shoulders away from the ears, so we don't want them up here. You want them away from the ears. Keep that gap underneath the side of your spine. Bringing the headlights at the front of the hips, pointing down towards the floor. Good. If you need to do this where you're almost lying down, but you're not quite on your side, that's fine. You can have a pillow underneath the outside knee so you're resting and you're still trying to do that opening position. Same thing if you were actually up a little bit further because you had pillows underneath you as well. Okay. Good. See if we can do 1 more here. Good. And you're going to take the pillow away. You're going to keep lying on your side. You can relax your body now. Arms together, palms together. From here, we're gonna do our arm openings. You're gonna draw the arm overhead, open that chest in a circle, and come back to that front position with your arms together. If you would like a pillow underneath your head, please do feel free. So you're relaxing your body, and we're just opening that breastbone, opening that chest, opening that breastbone, opening that chest. Good, that's it. One more. Good. From here, we're gonna gently push ourselves back to lying on our back, and then we're gonna drop the knees to the other side. Now, we're gonna do the other side, but I'm gonna turn to face you guys just so you can see me, but make sure you're turning to the other side. Okay, so just a reminder here, we're thinking about that hip bone. So this is my top hip bone, and this is my bottom hip bone. You can see it's a little bit of a diagonal. So I'm gonna pull that top hip down so that it's level, and by doing so, you create a little gap underneath your side, making sure your feet are aligned with your bottom and with the back and the shoulders. Think about the headlights at the front of the hips. You're gonna point them down slightly towards the ground rather than at the wall. You're gonna go down slightly. Keep this position and the gap underneath your spine. And we're gonna do our clams level 1 on the other side. That's it, good. So remember, if you are not able to lie directly on your side, that's fine. You can be like this and have a pillow on the outside of that knee to support it, and you move the other leg. It's the same thing as long as you're making sure to hold everything nice and steady. Good, that's it. Well done. Good, keep it going. Good, breathing. So again, you might notice a difference on either side when you're doing this exercise, and that's fine. We're just gonna notice the difference, but we're not really gonna be frustrated about it or do anything about it necessarily, because it's very common for us to have differences in range of movement, in flexibility, and strength on either side of our bodies. Good, we're gonna do a couple more here. That's it, well done, keep going. Remember to melt the ribs into the spine. We're not flaring the ribs forward. Good, try to keep that gap under the spine if you can. Headlights at the front of the hips, pointing down towards the floor. Good. You should feel it on the sides of your hips and your bottom. Good. 2 more on your own time. So remember, it doesn't have to be fast. You can do it in whatever speed you like. Good. You can give yourself a little rub on the side if you like. From here, we're going to place our arms in front, arms together, arms straight. And the bottom arm does not move. The body can now relax. The top arm is going to circle around such that you are moving that breastbone along with your arms. So I know I'm pretty close to the wall right now, so you can probably see me bending my arm as I circle. So if you have room, try to keep the arm nice and long, almost like you're drawing a circle with your fingertips. But unfortunately, my living room is pretty narrow, so I have to be quite close to the wall in order for you to see me, so hence why my arm is bent. Good, keep going. So this is nice, gentle rotation of the spine. Let's do one more. Good. From here, we're just gonna roll onto our back, and you're gonna just lie down in a comfortable position. We're gonna do our cool down now. We're gonna do a little bit of neck release. So you lie down in whatever position is comfortable for you. If semi-sitting is comfortable for you, you could do that. You're gonna now try to feel the weight of the head on the surface that you're resting on. Get the head to be as heavy as possible. From here, You're gonna keep that heaviness in the head and you're just gonna roll the head side to side in a comfortable range. Really feeling the weight of the head as you're rolling. Feel the weight of the head as you're rolling. That's it. Good. It's almost like you're massaging your scalp. You really want to feel the contact surface of your skull on the bed or the pillow. Good. And then we're going to come back to the middle and we're going to do the same thing with a little bit of a nod. So this time, imagine the back of your skull. You dipped that pointy bit right at the back of your skull in some ink, and you're using that to draw a vertical line on your pillow. That's it. You're really feeling the weight of the head. Good. That's it. Very nice. Good. And then you're going to come to a rest. We're going to bend both knees up. You're going to gently drop them to the side. Reach your arm across. From here, we're going to use our arms to try to push up, back up into a seated position. Okay, I'll just give you a second to do this. Lovely. Okay, from here, fingertips resting on the bed. We're going to do our mermaid stretch. Thinking about your toes flat on the floor, feet hip width apart, pelvis nice and heavy into the bed. And you're going to just see if you can sit up a little bit taller this time. Can you lengthen your spine towards the ceiling? Perhaps it feels a little bit easier now after all of that exercise. And what you're going to do here is you're going to lengthen one arm out to the side and up overhead. And then you're going to lengthen your spine a little bit more and you're going to slide the bottom hand away such that you're curving to the side. If you can get the elbow down, get the elbow down. If you can't, that's fine as well. Notice how there's a gap between my arm and my head. So I'm not going like this and I'm not doing this. You're keeping that chest, breastbone open, and then you're going to come back up. With your fingertips wide, imagine there's air underneath your arms. Again, you're lengthening that arm up overhead, air in between all your arms. You're going to slide that bottom hand away such that you're stretching. Make sure you're lengthening the arm. So we're not shortening the arm, you're lengthening. Your fingertips are lengthening to the opposite wall. Gap between the arm and the head. Make sure the head's not like this. You're keeping the head nice and along the crown of the head, pointing on a diagonal. And you're going to come back to the middle. And again, reach overhead. Nice gap of air between your arm and your head. Crown of the head pointing forward. Neck straight. Chest open. Breastbone pointing forward. One more. Reaching up, lengthening the arm away. Reaching up overhead, crown of the head pointing on a diagonal, air between the arm and the head, lengthen the fingers away, and coming back up. Good. Last thing, we're going to reach those arms up overhead and cross them down. And again, reach the arms overhead, cross them back down. One more. Reach the arms overhead. This time, palm coming in together into a prayer position. Deep breaths here. Breathing in to the bottom of the rib cage. And out. And again. And out. Good. And you can relax your arms, palms up. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I hope That was a nice and relaxing class. So if anybody has any questions about anything, please feel free to type it in the chat box. But hopefully you enjoyed the first session of our Pilates Level 1 class. How are we all feeling? Hopefully good. So we do have our email at the top of the chat box. So if you do have any feedback about the class or any comments or anything you would like to say, please do email us, because it is the first time we're doing this type of class online. And we would love to hear what you have to say about the class structure, about the adaptations, or anything that you feel you would like to see in the future. But hopefully that got you feeling a little bit more grounded in your day, and hopefully gave you a little bit more flexibility, and you feel a little bit stronger as you start to move around your home for the rest of the day. So thank you very much for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you guys on next week on Tuesday at the same time. And the sessions will get a little bit progressively harder as we go along, but of course there's always the option to stay at the same level, but it's just a way for us to progress a little bit as well, and hopefully this is a gentle way for you to then start your day on a Tuesday. And it is recorded, so if anybody wants to revisit the classes afterwards on your own time, it will be on our website after the series end. And if you were someone who was doing this class and you found it a little bit too easy, you can feel free to sign up for the Level 2 class, which is on a Thursday, and that one involves standing and lying on the floor and then standing back up again. So thank you very much for joining us. I can see there aren't any questions, but there's some really great comments. So thank you guys for joining us, and we will end the webinar now. But if you did have any other questions or any concerns, or you want to know about individual adaptations for any of your needs, please feel free to send us email, either through the info@parkinson.bc.ca, or you can email me personally, which is syu@parkinson.bc.ca as well. Perfect. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And thank you to Alana for facilitating the session and helping us click record. We will see you next Tuesday at 10:30.